the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavallaey. On today's show, we are delighted to be joined by former Arsenal striker Alan Smith, a Gunners legend who scored well over 100 goals for the club and was the league's top scorer in 2 title-winning squads. Alan will help us preview Wednesday's big Champions League game between Inter and Arsenal at San Siro. And we'll also ask him about that famous winner for Arsenal in the 1994 Cup Winners' Cup final against Parma. So Alan, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start with that famous winner in the 1994 Cup Winners' Cup final. What are your best memories of that goal and victory against Parma?
Well, I think it was the fact we were big underdogs, given that we got Ian Wright was suspended and we got key injuries as well. It was a bit of a makeshift midfield, in all fairness. So up against a Parma team that Zola, Asprilla, Thomas Brolin, Zola, yeah. Half of Italy's World Cup team, it seemed, that were going off to the States that summer. So they're very strong. I didn't used to get too many goals from outside the box. So to get one on the big stage like that and for it to count and win my club European trophy, it meant a great deal. You know, we rode our luck after that. We didn't have too many more efforts on goal. They had a few, but thankfully we held out.
Yeah, you certainly did. Did you or any of your Arsenal title winners, either the league title winners or that team that won the Cup Winners' Cup, ever get any offers from Serie A? And would you personally have liked to have played in what was the best league in the world at that time?
Yeah, that was the place to go, wasn't it? Obviously, the 80s, there were quite a few that came over from Britain. You know, the likes of Souness and Ray Wilkins, Trevor Francis, Liam Brady, all those boys. It was more of a defensive league then, wasn't it? And for me, I always thought, man marking might be more difficult for a player of my style. I'd have loved to have gone over in terms of the lifestyle, the food. I'd have loved that. I don't really think I had any serious interest. Sometimes back then you didn't actually hear about it. I didn't have an agent. So if the offer came into the club and the manager didn't really want you to know, to unsettle you, you wouldn't find out. But it was always a big kick to beat an Italian side. It was seen as a big achievement.
Lots of players from your generation and older, and even up until like the late 90s, have said that they didn't have agents. I mean, was that like the common practice then, that you just didn't have an agent?
They weren't so prevalent. There were still players that did have them. I've never been one that have really wanted that kind of relationship. Maybe that's been to my detriment at times. I joined Arsenal and negotiated myself, really, and probably could have done a lot better with an agent. But yeah, a lot of lads didn't have them. Some did, but that's just how it was. Now, of course, I think maybe there were a few that maybe just use a lawyer for contract negotiations, but they're certainly in the minority.
Well, let's preview Inter against Arsenal. Well, tomorrow, Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday. Arsenal go into this game in rather bad form. Inter, on the other hand, have 7 wins and 1 draw in their last 8. But what's gone wrong this season for Arsenal? And who would you blame, so to quote unquote?
Yeah, I did the game at Bournemouth when Saliba got sent off. And obviously that tipped the match in Bournemouth's favour, but Arsenal weren't playing particularly well before that and in that game. And it knocked them sideways a little bit, I think, losing there. And it affects confidence. They're the same as any team. You know, you have built up this self-belief and then you get a bad result and does knock you back a bit. Obviously, Odegaard has been a big blow. I mean, the game at Bournemouth where it was really tight, that's where you needed Odegaard to pick a pass, make something happen. But it is a difficult moment at the moment, as we say. I've got confidence they'll come through it. But yeah, they need to bounce back pretty quickly. Chelsea away at the weekend, which is a big game. If they could win that, then you're back on course.
Focusing more on the game itself, where do you think Arsenal can hurt Inter? And do you feel like making a prediction, perhaps, on how that game will go?
Yeah, it's different formations, isn't it? It'll probably be 3-5-2 for Inter, which worked really well against Manchester City, didn't it, earlier on this season? But being at home, Inter, it'll be a different kind of balance to the match. But I see Arsenal being fairly cautious again, going to San Siro, especially the way that they're feeling. So can they score a goal or two, and can they stop that strike force of Inter's from scoring? I think they can. If Gabriel and Saliba are back, at the top of their games, then the likes of Martinez and Thuram, I think they'll find it difficult against that pair.
And Arsenal have been linked with Lautaro Martinez, who you mentioned there, for a number of years. Given that Arsenal still probably miss a natural number 9, someone like yourself, is he someone you'd like to see Arsenal try to sign going forward?
Well, I mean, he's obviously a very good player who's been doing it at the top level for a long time. Whether now that ship has sailed in terms of him coming to Arsenal. I mean, he's 27. He's not old. Of course, he's not old. They're trying to, the profile is recruiting slightly younger players, but, he's got a lot of good years left in him. Recruitment-wise, Arsenal have been very cute over the last few years. Edu leaving now, so we'll see how that works out. But yeah, he's definitely one of those that other clubs would be interested in. How he would feel coming to England is a different matter. Some players, that they're happy in Italy, happy with his life there. So, but he's definitely a danger to Arsenal on Wednesday night.
Do you think either Arsenal or Inter can go all the way and win the Champions League this season?
At the moment, they probably don't look like favourites. We'll have to see how this Champions League group pans out. But, unbeaten. So both are be feeling as if they can go a fair distance in the competition. You'd probably look, it's early days still, isn't it? But you look at the top of the table, obviously Aston Villa up there. Liverpool probably will feel that they can maybe do something in the Champions League with their heritage. Arsenal and Inter, yeah, I think they can, go a fair distance in the competition. As for winning it, it's difficult to say because we're a long way away from, the new year when things can change so much. Perhaps players coming into the clubs in the transfer window in January, but in a decent positions at the moment.
Arsenal have been decimated with injuries recently, while Inter have struggled physically this season. But do you think a lot of the discussion has been about the number of games and so on? Do you agree that there are too many games being played and that something needs to be done about it? We've seen almost like an epidemic of ACLs in recent months.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of players hobbling off with muscle injuries. I did Spurs Villa at the weekend, and there were some of them were impact injuries. Others were, muscular. I think there are too many games. People talk about the olden days when teams would play 60 or 70, but it's such a different match, a different game now in terms of the physical efforts that are required. Obviously, teams have got big squads, but managers, quite naturally want to use their best players. But there doesn't seem to be any shift in reducing the number of games. The Club World Cup on the horizon and that. So yeah, I think managers will have to look at maybe rotating more than they have done in the past.
And just quickly, what are your thoughts on Riccardo Calafiori? Do you like what you've seen so far?
Very much so. Yeah, I've been surprised by how quickly he's settled, actually, coming into a different league. But he's taken that inverted fullback role, drifting into midfield with a lot of enthusiasm. Athletically, he's very good, and it's been a problem, the left back position, for a few years, and he looks like solving it. So yeah, I've been really pleased with him.
And just to finish off, we play this kind of for a bit of fun. We play a rapid fire game. We give you 2 or 3 options, and you just give us a one-word answer. Explain if you want. The best teammate you've had in your career?
I love playing with Paul Merson. He was a great striker to play with. He always lifted his head. We had a good relationship.
Most difficult opponent in your career?
I hated playing against Gary Pallister at Manchester United. He could kind of do everything I could. He was tall, long legs, and I never got much change out of him.
Who's the best number 9 in the world today?
I think you're looking at probably Erling Haaland, or Harry Kane's still up there knocking in the goals for Bayern. He's more complete centre forward than Haaland, but I mean Haaland is just a beast when he's at it, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Talking of 2 beasts, Saliba or Bastoni, who do you have in your team?
I think Saliba. I think Saliba is probably one of the best centre halves in the world. Obviously, Bastoni's he's up there as well, but it's that elegance, that cultured play, ability on the ball. I'd say Saliba.
Declan Rice or Nicolo Barella?
Yeah, another close one. Similar types of players. And then maybe a score draw there. Rice probably hasn't reached the levels of last season just yet, but there's not much to split them.
And finally, pineapple on pizza, food heaven or food hell?
Oh, that's disgraceful. It's food hell. You cannot have pineapple on pizza.
Thank you.
I'm more of a pepperoni, anchovy man, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alan. That was a big pleasure. Enjoy the game. We wish you all the best for the future. And thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next on Wednesday for the Q&A episode, and then on Thursday for the midweek Champions League show, where we will react to the Inter versus Arsenal game. Until then, ciao ciao.